Hello YouTubers, this is David Childley and welcome to your 2012 update. Now you may have seen the viral phenomenon this week that is phony, the KONY. What a load of baloney. Now it's been flying round and to date there's been about 60 odd million people that have actually viewed this video. And it started off as a heartwarming plea, a call to action to help the children that are suffering around the world. Now the global elite of this planet chose to single out 3 individuals with a good cause and a good charity and to use those to manipulate them to make a propaganda film that would create awareness of a new boogeyman, or a bogeyman as we say in the UK. You see, Bin Laden is no longer the world's #1 bogeyman, so they had to find a new enemy, a new person that would get public backing for a gentle, if not forceful, invasion into the African nations. It started off many years ago. More recently we've seen the invasion of Libya. Congo has just recently announced in 2009 they've got one of the biggest oil reserves and they're not going to make mistakes made by other nations and corrupt dictators. Well, within a few years of that, and also sitting on top of the world's largest cobalt mine, their resources are estimated to be around the 20+ trillion mark. And all of a sudden, America and England and the United Nations, in the guise of humanitarian, want to go in there and look for this guy called KONY, who's been on the loose for 26 years. He's probably a CIA rogue operative, put into these African nations to cause disruption and to cause civil war. That flames the fires, that keeps the war movement going, which the bankers love. Now, this has all been orchestrated by the bankers. They've got key politicians on board, key celebrities on board, to make sure this is a viral phenomenon. And it's really interesting to see that within a day it had got 4 or 5 million views. Within 2 days that had gone up to about 30 million views. But by the second day something interesting had started to happen. Now, the way I'm looking at KONY is another 9/11. Now, 10+ years ago we had 9/11, which put the planet into shock and fear. That sense of losing your power, hopelessness set in around the planet. But it took years before people started to question the official story. But what I want you to ask yourself is, look what happened with KONY. Within a few days, conspiracies, scams, irregularities in the accounts of the charity involved, only giving 30% through to the actual people in Uganda, and the people who are receiving those funds are actually the local army. So, you know, your dollars, your pounds, your euros are going to fund the building up of an army backed by American forces and the United Nations. How convenient to get a military base in the area right next to Congo that's just on the precipice of realising its fortunes and wealth and its natural resources. Now I'm sure there's good intentions there, but with the United Nations and the Americans and the English creeping in, there's always a hidden agenda, and whenever you see something go viral so quickly you've always got to ask yourself, who's pushing this? And, you know, who's got the most to gain from this? Now it's interesting to see today on March the 10th there's about 63 million views. That'll probably go to 100 million views early next week. But the real interesting key thing to look at is, if you look at the stats under the video, what you'll see is that the average age viewing this video are teenage girls from 13 to 18. And the next range is 18 to 24-year-old boys. Now that shows how younger girls are and how much more sensitive and aware they are. It takes boys a few, maybe 5 years longer to actually become as emotionally sensitive as the young girls do. But it shows there's a feminine energy now ruling the hearts with good intention in 2012. And I believe we've reached that tipping point of collective consciousness now. Awareness is growing. You've got 60 to 100 million teenagers sharing this movie. And really, whether the movie or the movement behind it is a scam or not, it's really irrelevant. Because what it's done, it's created a huge awareness in those teenage girls and boys. The next generation, they're now budding activists. And it's really backfired on the elite, because what they weren't expecting was the viral campaign to turn negative within a couple of days, for the youngsters to smell a rat and to go, hang on, let's question this, not blindly following it like we did with 9/11 10 years ago, and it took us years to really say anything or question the official story. The youngsters now are questioning the official story straight away while it's happening, and it can turn as quick as it rose. And what we're left with now is the elite bankers, by default, have actually sparked off a huge revolution in the teenagers. We had all the students protesting around the world with the Occupy movement and the slightly older people, but this is getting the youngsters just when they're becoming emotionally mature, just when they're having a real heartfelt want to be able to help the planet. Now, even though this is a manipulated campaign to pave the way for public support for troops to go over to that region and establish an African base, the point I want you to all see is that the manipulation of the elite is no longer working. You know, they cannot pull the wool over our eyes for long. With 9/11 they did it for years, but with KONY, a couple of days. The next movement, maybe even half a day. But the real point is that sooner or later there's going to be a good movement that's not backed by the elite, and the kids are going to get behind that. What do you think is going to happen when they suddenly say, well, what about corrupt politicians? Let's get a movement on Facebook and stop them. Let's stop war. Let's stop environmental destruction. Let's stop poverty. You know, we've always relied on governments and politicians to do that, but now the kids are taking it into their own hearts and they're dealing with it. You know, I know a young boy, a friend of my son's, who, when he first watched that video, he had a tear in his eye. He really felt for those kids. He got out his $25. He bought the KONY poster pack with the little bracelets on. And the other things you've got to ask yourself is, you know, these kids are just doing it from the heart. You know, they're just coming from the heart. They're pulling together. And that parents who say to me, oh, I don't let my kid go on Facebook much and I restrict their time on the internet is them all being plugged in, them connected, and together, collectively, they're going to change and shift that human evolution on this planet. This one single event is growing momentum, and it doesn't matter whether the actual experience or event is a scam or not. Look at what it's doing to those kids. Look how they're coming together. Now, they may have been duped on this and they're quickly starting to realise it, but the next positive movement that comes along is going to change the history forever. Well, that's about it for today. The 1%, the few, should be running for the hills. I'm hearing on the grapevine there's panic at the highest levels. The next generation are going to show the way, and they're not going to put up with politicians, they're not going to put up with government. They're going to take things into their own hands, they're going to network, and they're going to rise up. And we can all join in. We can go along for the ride. The 99% are about to rise up. This is a crucial tipping point in history, and I want everyone out there who's getting behind the KONY movement to see the bigger picture, to make sure that there's something happens that can track the charity and the organisation involved, so that we can work out where their funds are going to and if they're funding the right things. There's a lot of money, there's millions and millions and millions been raised through the selling of these packs, and they're not cheap. I thought they were a few dollars, but they're not. They're 25. You think how many millions of youngsters have all bought these packs around the world. That's a lot of money going in to that charity. A couple of years ago, charity turned over a couple of 100,000, then 8-9 million. Could be 100 million this year, but where's all that money going to go? This is what the youngsters need to do. They need to do their research and keep on top of this. And the bad boys, they better run for the hills, because their day is now over. This is a crucial tipping point, and as 2012 unfolds, I'm going to keep you updated with how it's going, and it's time to celebrate, because small steps, but they're going to make huge ramifications on how we live, and we are all moving to something better. Something wonderful is coming, so stay tuned, and I'll see you on another video.